We are resolved.
When he said, forgive those who wronged us, I was actually praying about that before I came out. It just made me laugh. But anyway, happy almost New Year as we close out 2023 and we step into 2024, right? So feels like a fresh start, and I always look forward to New Year's. And I made, how many here make resolutions? Just raise your hand. How many said, I don't do that anymore because I don't keep them? Raise your hand. You know, for last year, my resolution was pretty simple, actually. I wanted to grow closer to the Lord. When I say that, I don't think we grow closer to the Lord because God is inside of us. We become more of what God intended us to be. So I was praying for that. And after COVID, the gyms were shut down. I was praying that I would get back in shape and eat healthy. And then May happened. But that's what carried me through, actually. And fortunately, Kinnelon Sport and Fitness opened up again. I was over there this morning, actually, because my new resolution is kind of the same almost. I want to eat cleaner because I had a feeding tube in me, so I had to pile in food because I lost a lot of weight and I needed a lot of protein. When your body's healing, it uses a lot of calories. But I also want to get some sleep, at least 7 hours, 8 hours sleep a night if I can. And I want to read more. I want to read more books. I can't say I want to read 12 books because that would be one a month. And I don't want to put that pressure on myself. Even talking about this, it's getting me anxiety. It's just what we do. I always felt like we have too much to do and not enough time. There's not enough hours in the day. Sometimes there's not enough days in the week. You ever feel like that? It's like, do you have a to-do list? You guys do that? And you cross it off. And if I did everything on my to-do list, I did really good. So I kind of rate myself, But I don't know. I think the rule of 2024 is don't dwell on what went wrong in 2023, right? Just wrap it up and move on, move forward. And, if you don't, if you get caught up in all the things that you got to do, and this is a little stretch, but it reminds me of my first trip to Israel because I went out and bought the biggest suitcase you could find. And I think it should be up on the screen, perhaps, maybe. So that would be, click the next thing. Maybe it's not there. Anyway, I had shelves in it the whole bit, and it was a mess. It was just everything was piling out of it, and I had, at that point, 1991, you didn't have cell phones, so you had to put your camera in there, you had to bring that video camera that you put on your shoulder, and then your voltage adapters, everything I could think of, I put in that suitcase, and it was just kind of spilling out. Journals, Bibles, tons of Imodium just in case, because you never know what the food's going to be like, right? And it's a good thing I brought it, to be honest with you, that first year. And then sometimes, it wasn't just one hotel either. So as soon as we got to Ben Gurion Airport, we're waiting for our luggage. We see everybody running. I go, what's going on? Mika, oh, it was a bomb scare. I'm like, we're here, and everybody was charging out of there, but there was no bomb. It was just a bomb scare. But then we stayed in Netanya in Tel Aviv, and then from there we stayed in the Dead Sea. Then we went up to Tiberias and up to Jerusalem. There was 4 different hotels that you had to pack and get ready and move again. So I was kind of exhausted, and life kind of feels like that too sometimes when you're overstuffed and overloaded. It just gets, you're trying to do everything, and it's kind of dragging you. So Harvard Business School said 7 out of 10 adults clarify their life as busy or very busy. And we don't need Harvard to tell us that, right? You call up one of your friends and say, how you doing? I'm good, man, but I'm busy. How you doing? Busy, busy. How about you? I'm really busy, man, but I'm good, but I'm just really, really busy. And then you look at what Jesus said in Matthew 11. He said, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Doesn't that sound good? Yeah. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, my burden's light. That sounds like a hot bowl of soup on a cold February Sunday, doesn't it? Come follow me. Your life's going to be easy and light, and you're going to be full of rest. That sounds really good, really good. But again, like I said, for me, there doesn't seem to be enough hours in the day anymore. I I get overloaded myself and I put too much pressure on myself to do, and I've always been like that. So what if there's a chance to start fresh, and not just a fresh start, but to start fresh? And I'm borrowing this concept from someone, but it's with permission, But how do we live in a world that's spinning around out of control, an exhausting world? It's just my motto these days is I got from Mika. It was, blessed are the flexible. You'll enjoy life better. So just remember that, right? So let's go back to the beginning of everything. Let's go back to Genesis. Genesis 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, let there be light. That might have been the Big Bang, who knows? And there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. And then we go to day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. So God created all these environments, and then he filled them. He created a carbon life-sustaining planet, and he put us in there because he wanted a family, he wanted you in it. On day 6, we read on verse 27, so God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Life was simpler then. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Genesis 1 is written in a form of poetry. There's a rhythm to it. And the repetition shows us what's important. When I was studying for the ministry, you get a pericope of scripture, and when you look at repetition in there, that's what you hone in on. That's the important thing that they're driving, all right? So, and again, we don't need me to tell me that. When you get a phone call or you get a text from somebody, maybe you're busy, maybe you're doing something. For me, maybe I'm talking with someone, and all of a sudden somebody's texting me or they're calling me, and I'm like, I'll get that later. I'm talking with someone right now. But when somebody calls you 7 times in 1 minute, it's either super urgent or they're nuts, and it's like, no, I'm sorry, but so I always let it go to voicemail, because then I could check instead of getting crazy with somebody. And you got to prepare yourself for that. Well, in the repetition here, God was creating, and this was good, and this was good, and this was good, and this was good. God tells us what is good, right? But he created, he saw it was good, and there was evening, and there was morning. That's kind of backwards, isn't it? To us, evening and morning, morning and evening. We start in the morning, right? We start our day, you get up in the morning and you hit your alarm, you go take a shower or whatever, go down for breakfast or coffee, or if you grab it out, and then you go to work. And then when we finish everything that we had to do for the day, then we rest. That's our rhythm. Our rhythm of life is we work, and then we rest. With the Jewish day, it starts with rest, eating with your family, talking, sleep, and then you go to work. It's a little different. It's a little backwards, sort of. Why does that matter? It really mattered to the Israelites because Moses is the one who wrote Genesis. Genesis 1, I believe he wrote the first 6 books of Tanakh of the Bible. But you got to remember, Moses started out as a basket case floating down the Nile, and then he got pulled in, and he grew up in Pharaoh's household. And then from there, he grew up in Pharaoh's household. He's a prince of Egypt. And then he realized who he was, and he ended up killing a guy that was beating one of the Jewish people. And then he took off. He fled into the desert, into the wilderness. Then he had a burning bush experience. And God basically told him, Moses, I want you to go back to Egypt and tell that Pharaoh guy to let my people go. Whoa. That's almost like, that's like a Jewish person that escaped from Germany and God saying, go back and tell Hitler to knock it off. That's kind of scary. So Moses was stuttering, I don't speak well, and send my brother Aaron, and he had a staff in his hand, so God used what he had, and he sent Aaron with him. But what is God trying to tell his people there? That they could never do enough, which was important to hear that because the Israelites were probably the first ones to read Genesis. And I'm not sure if they either read it in the wilderness or they read it when they got into the promised land. But for them, God delivered them from slavery. Their job was to make bricks. Their job was 400 years of captivity. They were always in captivity. Whether it was the Babylonians, the Romans, or the Egyptians, they were a people that were always in captivity. And then basically, from sun up to sun down, you were making bricks or you were making the monuments that showed you how grand Pharaoh was. And a lot of it wasn't even that big. It was Pharaoh doubled the amount of bricks that they had to make, which really put a lot of stress on them. So their value was gained. Their value was meant by how many bricks did you make today when a taskmaster asked them. And if they didn't make any bricks, they had no value. So why are you alive? That's kind of that's how they dealt with them. How many bricks did you make? So I think God is saying that there's a better way. Your day doesn't have to start with work. Your day starts with rest. Why? Because the rest is to trust that what God has done is enough. Now, I'm sure we're all glad. We've come a long way since then, right? Or did we? I don't think Pharaoh does it to us anymore. I mean, thousands of years since, we have advanced technology. We have all our social structure now and social media structures. And I don't know if we assign value to people by how many bricks they make anymore, or do we? How many times do you check your email on your phone and your messages a day? I probably do it about 30, maybe over 30 times a day. I'm not kidding. And then how many times you look on social media to see, maybe you put up a post, do they like me? How many people like my posts? Because that gives me value. Or, hey, it's good to meet you. What do you do for a living? How many bricks do you make? It's like, that's what it is. Like, where do you make your bricks and how many do you make? What do you want to be when you grow up? Most kids today are like, I want to be Elon Musk. I want to be Jeff Bezos. I want to be Bill Gates. I want to be Warren Buffett. Why? Because they make the most bricks. They got more bricks than anybody. It's not, I want to develop a business plan. I want to start a company. No, I just want a whole ton of bricks. Not how to get there, And that's a really soul-crushing way to live. Did you ever see Elon Musk's schedule? Did you ever read it? He's intense. He hardly sleeps. It's a waste of time, really. And then the one thing that he allows himself is this really expensive jet because it allows him to work more. But he actually sleeps. He stays mostly on a place in SpaceX that he designates his little spot where he can relax and all. I don't know if it's his wife or his girlfriend. I'm not sure who it is. But she was complaining that the mattress was sleeping on is all bumpy and everything. I was like, wow. It's just, he's spun. I mean, he's a visionary, and I'm kind of impressed with him, to be honest with you, the way he thinks. I like the guy. But we do it to ourselves. We're our own Pharaoh. I got to do. I got to do, And value is what we place on, did I cross everything off my to-do list? Now I have value. But does my house look like it could be an architectural digest? And no offense if that's your thing. But it's a lot, and if you can afford something like that and you got people to clean it and all that and keep it up, that's great. I kind of like a house that's lived in with kids and stuff and the dogs, and I kind of like that. I don't know. But again, I'm not mocking on anybody. Whatever you do, you do. But we try to get everything done and to get approval for ourselves and even our own approval. I approve myself if I finished everything today. Wow. I had to sit down. This has been a tough year for me, really, but God has been moving like crazy. But I remember from Thanksgiving until now, it's been crazy. The velocity of speed and time has been nuts for me. And I just remember trying to get everything done and making sure I hit my marks every Sunday. And then, poor Roger, that took the wind out of my sails on Christmas Eve. But it's not the first time that a guy came in here that really didn't have a good relationship with God at all and was more maybe religious and followed, religious observances, but didn't have a relationship. And by the time it was time for him to go home, he had a really good relationship with God. So it's almost like God brought him in to get him ready. And we're honored, all of us. That's for all of us. We're honored that of the way where he was with God before God took him home. And that hasn't been the first person that we have done that with, trust me. So I don't, but I remember sitting down on the couch in the house and I was just, I just felt like the weight of everything was on my shoulders, and I just was out of breath. And then all of a sudden, I get a text from one of our young people, and she goes to me, "Chuck, you're the best, man." And she goes, "I love you." She goes, "You know what? You always met me where I was. You never judged me, and you're always there for me. So I just want to tell you, I want to make sure you know I love you, and have a great Christmas." And that just blew a fresh puff of wind right into me. It's God knows when you need stuff. I think we try so hard to earn something that was already freely given to us. God put me where he wants me. He gifted me to do that, and he empowers you to do that, and that's for all of us. God will put you where he wants you. Now, in Matthew 3, great story, Jesus was getting baptized. Now, Jesus, when he was a baby, his mom brought him to the temple, and Joseph, to get dedicated. And then when he got older, he's probably about 30 years old, he went and got baptized in the Jordan River by his cousin, John the Baptist. And at that moment, he comes up out of the water, and he saw a great cataclysmic event. The heavens opened, and the Holy Spirit descended upon him like a dove. And then you hear a voice from heaven. He heard it. And more than the 3 times that God audibly spoke to the Son. And it just said, "This is my Son whom I love. With him I am pleased." Wow. Now, the cool thing about that is Jesus didn't do anything yet. You know what I mean? That's when he started. That was the inauguration of his ministry, was his baptism. And this is my Son whom I love, who I am well pleased. So it wasn't like Jesus had to complete all these things for God to love him. And it's the same with us. We have a to-do list, but God has a to-done list. And God's to-done list is a lot more important than our to-do list. It really is. What he has done is he created. You came out of the womb a winner. The chances of that sperm hitting that egg and that you're a winner as soon as you come out. Seriously. He created you. He saved you. He heals the diseases of your soul. That's what he does. He adopts you into his family. He comforts you. He calls you. He gifts you. He empowers you to do what he calls you to do. He goes before you. He is with you. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he will deliver them. God's to-done list means we can lay down our to-do list. Now, everybody's looking at me like, "Are you saying we don't have to work anymore, Chuck?" This is not that kind of a message. It's not an anti-work message. I'm talking about evening and morning, and I'm talking about rest and then work. There's a balance there. And work is a gift. I think we'll work when we get to heaven. Adam and Eve were working in the garden, right? So I do believe that we will still work, but our work comes from approval. Not that I go to work to get approval, and I think we all did that. I go to work, if I do this, my boss will like me, or they'll like me, or they'll see how valuable I am, whatever that is. I mean, we should be doing our work anyway, but work from approval, not for approval, and life should come from you, not at you. That's a whole different rhythm. It's a whole different rhythm of life. That's what we're talking about. You start fresh. So what is rest? Rest is a lot broader than we think that it is. I mean, if I ask you what rest is, you say going to sleep, or taking a nap or whatever. And yeah, it's that. Rest is whatever focuses on the goodness of God. God said, "This is good, this 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 is very good." And then he sat back and rested, gazing at what was good, what he created. So we go to sleep. That's rest, of course. How about when you hear a worship song? Praising. I have times when I'm in the house there, and I'll put some music on, with praise music, and I got to sit down and just stop. And I got tears flowing out of my ear. It's just a release of emotions, and it just washes all over me. That is rest. Have about a good meal with people that you love. Wasn't that rest? We're taking the time out and having a meal together, pumping each other. It's a good belly laugh with friends. Laughing together. I went down to Red Bank for my birthday, and I had a meal with Paul and a few friends down there, and I love when I see them. I love when I'm with those guys. And we laugh like crazy because we've known each other since we're kids. So that's rest to me. A rest is taking a walk outside. Rest is going home and making love with your spouse. Notice I said spouse. I mean, but that's rest. I got your attention now, right? Rest is rest is prayer. It's vacationing, taking a vacation with people you care for. That's rest. So how do we include that in a rhythm of life? How do we do that? In Scripture, there's three types of rest that I see. There's a daily rhythm of rest. So there's evening and there's morning, and that's what he was saying. So you eat dinner with your family, you're talking about things around the table. No cell phones at the table, please. How many have that rule in the house? Anybody? Yeah. It's a good rule. It's a good rule. Talking about things of substance. You're reading your Bible, you read Scripture, that's rest to me. Prayer, if it's not a panic prayer, but if you're just praying and talking to the Lord like I'm talking to you. Wesley called them ejaculatory prayers. That was John Wesley's term. Wow. But he would just immediately just start praying all day. Rest is walking your dog. You do that anyway, right? So maybe you could pray while you're walking your dog, or just take a recess and just a little inventory while you're walking the dog. Amen. If you're a single parent, I know you're busy, and rest for you might be when you go to the bathroom. I'm sorry, or maybe a couple of minutes before you get out of bed. And just surrendering everything, surrendering the day to the Lord. Lord, I surrender my eyes, my mouth, my everything. Just I give it all to you, Lord, and maybe that's your moment of rest. And then jumping into your day. I know, it's tough. So that's a daily rhythm. There's a weekly rhythm too. That's what a Sabbath is all about. On the seventh day, after looking at everything that he created that was good, God looked at it and then he rested. When I was about 17 or 18, I had this cool car. It was a Ford Galaxy, man. They don't make those anymore, but they were cool. But we went down to Ocean Grove, and it was a Sunday. And we're all kids. I think I was 17 or 18. And there was a chain. You know those two columns that you drive in? There was a chain going across there. And us being kids were like, get that chain out of there. And we zoom in. It was like a ghost town. And then finally I saw a guy walking, so I pulled up. I said, what's up, man? He goes, you better get that car out of here. I said, why? He goes, it's Sunday. You're not allowed to drive in Ocean Grove on a Sunday. You're not allowed to mow your lawn. I'm going way back. Now they don't have it anymore. But that was how they honored the Sabbath. And we got out of there fast, and the police didn't see us, so it was okay. But that's why we have church on a Sunday, too. To be reminded of the goodness of God and to have fellowship with like-minded people. That's what the Sabbath rest is all about. My Sabbath isn't on a Sunday. I'm here on a Sunday. I work on a Sunday. My Sabbath is Monday. Monday's my down day. But it should be a day where you just rest and enjoy the Lord and just rest. And then there's a daily rhythm, there's a weekly rhythm, there's a seasonal rhythm too. They have Feast of Tabernacles, Passover, Sukkot, Shavuot. They have many different seasonal holidays, as we do. I'm sure tonight there's many New Year's Eve parties, right? You going to behave? You have your anniversary celebrations. We all do. Your vacation with your family, and I don't know, whatever it is. Maybe a long weekend outdoors or a long weekend somewhere. We're going down the shore, and fishing is rest. I mean, it gets a little adrenaline kick too when you start catching big tunas and stuff, but it's awesome, but that's rest. We need to do that. We really need it. And I could still, at times, I could say all that, but we could still feel like that overpacked luggage, overstuffed, overloaded, and there's too much going on, Chuck. Well, God says there's a better way. And it's not just a fresh start, it's a different rhythm that starts with rest, to start fresh. So let's face it, sometimes life is going to be extremely busy. I get that. We've got some business owners here, and I know when you get that thing up and running, you're rolling, man. When I first started here, I was working 7 hours a day and many, many hours all the time. Sometimes there's just a lot of work to do. And that's okay as long as we're putting our trust in God and approach it from a place of rest. That's what I'm trying to say to you. This is not an anti-work message. To sum it all up, the invitation is portrayed as a fresh start, not just for a new year, but for life in general, with a different rhythm. I know a lot of you, Gyro, you don't mind if I use you, right? John owns a kennel on Sport and Fitness. But I know he takes his moments. You know, he's got his motorcycles, he's got his RV, and he gets away. And that's a new business, basically, you know, but he has people delegating, he has people running it, and he gets his time for himself. He always does. And I love that about him. That's very, very smart, right? So trust in what God has already done, and then find rest in the goodness of God. You know, start your day with rest and trusting in God's provision. You know, overall, the invitation from Jesus is to embrace a new rhythm of life. That's what I'm talking about today. Because every New Year's Eve sermon I've done before was like, you know, we've got to form new habits, and Atomic Habits is a great book, and it is. You should read that book. It talks about developing healthy habits, new ones, right, and having them continue to help you throughout the year. But this is talking about a new rhythm of life that begins to trust with God's grace. And then allow yourself to rest and ease into the new year rather than charge full speed ahead. Now, every year, for the last number of years, we've done a fasting for 21 days. And I'll be honest with you, I've been so spun out, I didn't even think about it until this morning. So look at how far our church has come in the last year. And we did it last year. We fasted for 21 days. And God has done so much. So I'm going to say it again. I'm going to fast for 21 days. You don't have to start today. You don't have to start tomorrow. You start whatever you want this month, I would say. But prayer and fasting, God, it just moves the heart of God. It does. So I'll send out material for that. It doesn't have to be food. It could be anything, you know. But I think it's important to do that. We've done it, I think, for the last 4 or 5 years, and I see a lot of changes that have happened in the last 4 or 5 years, especially the last couple of years. I think it's a game changer, and I think this is a game changer too. So I didn't want to give the usual, and I want to look at a closing video. The worship team will come up to close us, and I'll come out and close us out in prayer, at a year-end prayer, okay? Thanks, everybody.
Blessed are you who are downhearted,
tired and weary,
and in need of something more.
Blessed are you who have had a tough year or season,
perhaps filled with ups and downs,
sorrow and sadness,
misery and mistakes.
You are not alone.
Blessed are you whose dreams have been interrupted,
stomped on, or perhaps just taking too long.
There is a new thing right around the corner.
Blessed are you who don't know what to believe
or why you are here today.
But despite that, you keep pushing forward.
Blessed are you who are walking through seasons of prosperity and joy,
celebration and hope.
For you have found something truly worthy of sharing.
You see, sometimes life is just hard, but blessed are those who seek the Lord in the midst of that darkness.
For there is hope.
Real, tangible hope found in Him.
So today,
may you be reminded that you were created on purpose and for a purpose.
May you know that God has big plans for you.
Plans to prosper you.
and not to harm you.
May you walk in truth and light,
so that no matter where you go,
You will have a light unto your path.
May you find rest, free from anxiety.
and may his love, which is never ending,
And his grace, which is never failing.
Follow you wherever you may go.
For he has come
to make all things new.